So we're continuing with principle number 8. We got to page 13, starting the section of the work of the mind, Emuna. The spiritual work of believing, called Emuna, corresponds to the mind aspect of our desire to receive. This is the work of transcending our intellect. Emuna involves going along the path of Torah and the way of Chazal, the holy sages, even when it is beyond our understanding. The spiritual masters are trying to take us to a consciousness that's beyond what we could understand right now. So they're helping us learn how to go beyond what we could understand. The spiritual path towards attaining the ability to go beyond what we understand entails us practicing and doing things that are beyond our understanding. Right? So to reach the goal of Emuna, we also have to work in the way of Emuna. You know, the Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, he's called in the Zohar the Raya Mehemna, which means the shepherd of Emuna. So Moshe Rabbeinu is shepherding us, guiding us in the way of Emuna. How to attain Emuna. Okay, so it says here the spiritual work of Emuna has many aspects. 1. Emuna, that the way to connect with God is through giving and loving others. This section is going to go through 10 different aspects of Emuna. So the first one is Emuna, that the way to connect with God is through giving and loving others. Even though our ego's desire to receive denies this, we need to have Emuna that the way to connect with God is through giving and loving others. This Emuna motivates us to root our lives in giving. Without giving and loving others, it is not possible to come close to God. Right, so like we saw in the principles before, talking about the stages of spiritual development, that everything we're going through is learning to reach a state where our giving becomes more precious to us than our receiving. So at the root of all of our spiritual work is working to attain a state of giving. So we need to work on developing our Emuna, that the way of giving is the way of a spiritual, that's the spiritual path. Our desire to receive, which is in control, is not interested in starting to root our lives or direct our lives or try to develop in our lives deeper and deeper levels of giving. So part of our work is in having Emuna, working to have Emuna, cultivating our Emuna, that the path of giving, that developing our giving is the way. Number 2, Emuna, that God is guiding the world in absolute goodness. The spiritual work of Emuna involves striving to realize that everything we experience is divinely orchestrated and coming from God's desire to bestow goodness. The idea that God is guiding the world in goodness is beyond what our minds can comprehend. We experience suffering in our personal lives and see the great suffering throughout the world. However, as long as we are under the influence of our desire to receive, everything we see is an illusion. It is only when we are free from our desire to receive that we will be able to see the true reality, that God is guiding the world in the way of absolute goodness. The spiritual work of Emuna involves striving to believe that everything is flowing from God's goodness and striving to be joyful even when the goodness is hidden. To the extent that we have Emuna in God's giving and love, we also give and love. Oh, there's so much here. We learned from the idea of the Tzimtzum that all of the goodness, or most of the goodness, is hidden from us until we're ready to experience it in the way of giving, in the ultimate way. So all of the hiddenness of the goodness that we're experiencing right now is a result of our still being under the control of our desire to receive. So being under the control of our desire to receive is what's causing the illusion that what's going on is not the goodness. It's not the process of the goodness flowing to us. So there's the aspect of Emuna, of us working on trying to have Emuna, working on cultivating our belief and realizing, becoming aware or having Emuna that everything that's going on in our lives is all divinely orchestrated to the nth degree to help us become ready to experience God's goodness. It's the hardest thing in the world. But that's where there's an aspect of Emunah that we're working to cultivate, to try to have Emunah on that. To try to have Emunah that every event we're experiencing that's not so good, to realize, to have Emunah that that is happening for a very exacting reason, to help our souls develop, to experience a goodness beyond anything we could ever possibly dream of, and try to see how from this moment what's happening is here to guide us in coming to God's goodness. So he said here, the spiritual work of Emunah involves striving to believe that everything is flowing from God's goodness and striving to be joyful even when the goodness is hidden. There's a state of joyfulness that we can have in Emunah, even when the goodness is hidden from us. To the extent that we have Emunah, we can be joyful. Emunah is actually the most precious thing in all the world. A person could have everything. Could have billions of dollars, could be anything a person could want. Have great health, could have everything a person would want. Wonderful family, could be famous, could be have everything that someone could want. But if that person doesn't have Emuna, doesn't have belief that everything that's going on is for the good, so the person really doesn't have anything, because they don't know what's going to be in the next moment. Maybe it won't be so good. And if a person has absolutely nothing material, has no money, living on the street, has bad health, has nothing, in the worst situation. But if that person has Emunah, that person has belief that everything's going on is for the good. So the person has everything, could be joyful. So Emunah is really the most precious thing that there is. That's what there is to attain, is Emunah. And it ended here. It said, to the extent that we have Emunah in God's giving and love, we also give in love. So that's a beautiful point. That the extent to which we can cultivate our Emunah, that the source of reality is all loving and giving. To the extent that we can have belief in that, can raise our Emunah in that. So that's the extent that we also, that Emunah gives us the desire to also be in a state of giving and love. The more that we can have Emunah, that our divine source is only giving and loving, it causes us to also be in the state of giving and loving. Okay, so we'll end here for now.